Hey guys, Japanese language instructor and hobbyist independent game designer John Gale from Nashville, Tennessee, coming at you with a bit of a postmortem on Ludum Dare 44 International Game Jam that a group of us in the Nashville game developers participated in last weekend, April 26th through 29th. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the game I made, which you can find on my profile. It's called Sky Blue. The theme of the jam was Your Life is Currency. So if we go over to RPG Maker where I made the game, I'll flip over to my screen and let it run for a bit in full screen mode. Let me turn the volume up so the music and everything comes through. So that was the basic premise of the game there on the intro screen. Since the theme was Your Life is Currency, I thought the things that you have to do, like find an apartment, that those should cost you HP as your currency. So for example, getting an apartment cost 100 HP, and you can see it subtracted that in the top left corner. Nope, sorry, the screen's a little cut off here, but that's the point. And then you would also have to get a job. I'm gonna cut that off, let you guys have a chance to play it. So there's the thing. Let me go full screen again. Okay, full screen before was getting cut off for some reason. But that was the game I made based on the theme Your Life is Currency, and I'll be honest with you that it's not my best work in RPG Maker, as I've said before in these videos. You know, in some ways in this LD Jam, different from other times, I got really derailed and I did a lot of things that decreased my motivation, and I did not put in the same amount of time as I have in other projects. I've not put in the same amount of creative ownership, I'm calling it, and the results have shown. After you sort of pick a job and pick an apartment, it kind of becomes a slog from then on out, just to go through the 12-month period and not having the time. The reason for that was originally the game was planned to not only have apartments and jobs, but also friends who you could hang out with, and depending on their personality, they could drain or add to your HP, and also dates you could go out with. The same thing, if you're in a relationship with them, it could drain your HP or could add to it. So the currency of life was hit points in and of itself. That was the idea of the game, but like I said, I did not put in the time and effort. In Japanese, I would say shojiki ni ieba ganbatte nakata. Just to be honest, I didn't do my best with this project. And you know, I was watching some of fellow Nash game developer Corey Martin. I was watching some of his stream, and he felt like, you know, with the theme and everything, like if you didn't like the theme, it just kind of threw the rest of the experience off. So I've already kind of gotten negative feedback about the game, which I was expecting, and which I accept. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to say that even if I kind of failed this time, I hope to turn it into a teaching opportunity. You know, I've learned the lessons for next time, and hopefully I can help teach some other people those lessons for next time. So these were some of the creative lessons I learned, and I'm not just going to read the PowerPoint. I want to show some things. First thing I learned is don't set pigeonhole goals. What I mean by that is, before I started this Ludum Dare, I just had this idea in my mind, like seeing what other people had done in game jams. You know, some people have made something in a game jam and then went on to release it commercially, And I thought, man, that would be great. Like, I put together a prototype of something, have people test it out as part of the jam, and then the next month maybe spend, a few weeks to a few months working on it, and then actually release it commercially to iOS and Android. So I kind of said that was one goal I set for myself. That's what I'm going to do. And then the next goal was I sort of defined the genre before we even got the theme. I was like, this game I'm going to release commercially is going to be a hyper casual game, something that I'm going to focus on mechanics, because a lot of times I really like working with narrative in the games we make for the game jams, but this time I was like, as opposed to narrative, mechanics. Those are my two goals: have something I could eventually release commercially, and two, a focus on mechanics over narrative. And when the themes were announced, what I did, or when the theme candidates were announced, because one thing that's really fun in Ludum Dare is you get to vote on what the theme is going to be. And I made this sheet right here of all the ideas I had for, there's about 20 some candidates for what's going to be the theme. And so I came up with an idea for each one. And the only theme that really fit my goals of hyper casual commercial release and focus on mechanics over narrative was this color changes everything. That was the only thing that I could have really fit my goals. So what I found, what I mean by saying I pigeonholed myself, is because I was trying to hold myself to these two goals before the jam, and then the actual theme, Your Life is Currency, my idea for that did not mesh with the goals. I think that really tore down my motivation throughout the weekend. And the next thing that sort of tore down my motivation while we're here is I got really attached to some of the theme candidates. The game is called Sky Blue because there were about 5 possible themes that I highlighted in Sky Blue that I could make one project for, and I did that, and that's eventually what released. There were 4 more ideas that were up for vote: Shelter, Contagious, Mutation, and Underground. And I did make a separate RPG Maker project and put more time into that one before the jam started than I did what I eventually used. And I think through that I really got attached, because if it were either of those 4, it was a post-apocalyptic world where these waves of radiation or contagion would come at random intervals, and the player had to go underground to take shelter and get to from a point A to point B. I got really attached to that idea. I put a good amount of time into it, and then in the end the theme was not that, and it did kind of bum me out. And I think that really decreased my motivation on top of the pigeonhole goal. So that was like a 1-2 punch for motivation. And then as the jam went through, on Saturday, had to go see Endgame. So I was not able to get up in the morning and get to work. Had to go see Endgame, have lunch with friends. That ate about 6 hours of work time for the game. And then throughout that time, that Friday and Saturday while I was doing that, I was getting a lot of emails about, projects I'm working on, and just a lot of things in life like cleaning the house and laundry were not getting done. So Sunday morning, with low motivation, I was like, I'm going to do all my real life stuff I have to do. And again, I did not start work until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, both Saturday and Sunday. So that's like another 6 hours or more lost. So I've easily, throughout the course, just through like having other things to do over the weekend and not being motivated, I lost about 12 to 15 hours of work I would normally put into a game jam, and I think that shows in the final product. That's why I didn't get to the friends and the dates mechanics in the game. So those were some of the painful lessons I learned about motivation. Don't set the goals, don't get attached to a theme, and also that there is a difference between effectiveness and laziness. So what do I mean by that? So in all of my projects, this map you see here, this nice looking town map, this is a preloaded map in RPG Maker. As all the apartments, I just edited as I needed. This office, this school, this seacoast, I did not design any of this. These were all pre-loaded maps that I just put in there. It's like, I'm going to make it work. all these NPC characters, the landlords, the bosses at the jobs, the friends and the dates. There also was not a whole lot of creative ownership put into these characters. We used the random character generator in RPG Maker on Friday night. Some of the Nash game dev people and we would randomize a character, fix it as we needed, and say, what's his name? Okay, Corey's here, Marissa's here, that's the character's name. So they don't really, there's no emotional attachment to them. There's no backstory to them. They were just faces and names that served a role. And I think because of that, I think at the time what I told myself I was doing is that I was being effective, that I wasn't wasting a lot of time with designing characters and designing maps, and that would give me more time to focus on mechanics and programming, but without that at least some bit of emotional attachment to the characters and the maps, I think I didn't have enough motivation again. So I've come to look at it as like a spectrum. So let's say on one end of the spectrum you could have like I don't care at all. And on the other half of the spectrum you could be like, this is my magnum opus, this is the work of my heart, or like I'll try to be all like super emotional about the work that you're creating. And either of those extremes don't work really well. And I think my problem this time is I was on the I don't care extreme. I was very much down there and just trying to spit the game out. And the end result was not the quality I wanted. So I think I needed to come back a little bit more from that. At a game jam, because the time is limited, you don't have that, pour all this emotion into it kind of time anyway, but I did need to have more creative ownership in the process. And that was what led to my last point. So those are my corrective actions for next time. Before the jam starts, I'm not setting any sort of goals in terms of like, oh, I'm going to ship to mobile, or I did it in Global Game Jam one year. I was like, I'm going to make a mobile VR game, and kind of got over my head. So I'm not going to set any more goals like that. As fun as the Ludum Dare process is on voting for themes and being really involved in the community aspect of it, for number 45, I've just decided I'm going to wait for the theme. It's like trying not to spoil Avengers Endgame. I'm just going to wait for the theme, because anytime I've done that, that has sort of spurred that motivation and that discussion with other people of trying to come up with ideas. And even if you don't like the theme, like I really hated this year 2019 Global Game Jam's theme, hated that theme, but that in a way became my impetus, my motivation to like make a protest game against the theme. So that's what I'm going to do next time. I'm just going to wait for when the theme's announced on Friday night, 8 o'clock, and then like, hey, start really throwing ideas together and like care about what I do and not worry so much about the time, because I could have spent less time on programming and more time on character development in this project, and I think it would have gone better. And finally, to sort of correct these things, I want to collaborate with other people next time. Ludum Dare 43 had a team. There were 3 of us. I think that's my proudest work I've ever submitted for this game jam. When you collaborate with other people, you help keep each other accountable. And so, like, I couldn't just goof off or be unmotivated for 12 or 15 hours over the weekend if I had other people on a team depending on the work I did. And this is one idea for Nashville game developers. We tried to find, last year, 2 times for the game jam for Ludum Dare, we had space where everybody got together and co-worked even on different projects. And I think that made a huge difference too, that you've got to go to somebody's house, or I was able to rent some conference room space last time and say it's going to be open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday, then you've got to be there during that time working on the jam. And I think even if you're working on your own project, just being in the same room with other people who are also working really hard on the jam will help keep you more accountable. Also, so in Nashville, the next Ludum Dare will be sometime in October, and I think we need to keep trying to explore space options. If you're from Nashville, you know it's getting really, really hard to find space in this city. It's getting really, really expensive. Nashville game developers, we do have some budget to pay for space, but it's not enough for market prices. We could throw in maybe $100 or $150 towards some space over the weekend. Most things in Nashville are going for $25, $50 an hour. We're talking close to 15, 20 hours of space Friday night, Saturday, and most of Sunday. And we would need, you know, the seats, the tables, the Wi-Fi, the bathrooms, ample parking, day and night, people shouting, "Howdy, neighbor." I think if we had all those things, we would have what we need to hold the small-scale game jam, like the Ludum Dare game jam. If there's anywhere in Nashville or the surrounding area that can help sponsor or provide that space, again, we have some sort of budget, just get into contact with me. But next, what I would like to talk about are the technical lessons I learned, because that's another big part of the game jam, is to improve your technical skills. So let's hop back over to RPG Maker and show you what I learned. So in my seminar on RPG Maker, I always teach people this, to go into RPG Maker and this Made with MV plugin to turn it off. Even if you don't know what plugins or anything are, go in and turn this off, and that gets rid of the Made with MV splash screen, which takes about 5 seconds to run. So every time you run your game, you're saving yourself about 5 seconds of life, and that'll add up all the multiple times you have to run your game and test it. However, just above that, already in the plugins, already here by default, is the Community Basic plugin. And I didn't really understand what this did, but there are parameters here to set the screen width and height. It defaults to 816 by 614 or something very small and very box-like, not a widescreen resolution. So just Googling and reading around, it seemed like 1280 by 720 is a pretty good size to set the screen at for a widescreen, whether people are playing on computers or TVs or possibly mobile devices. You're going to have some give and take, but that generally works pretty well. So that's how to set that. So set that first. What else did I learn? Don't transfer the player to a different map in a parallel event. So what parallel events are? Lost my mouse. Hello, mouse. Oh. Where are you? It's disappeared from the screen because there were coordinates. That's moving. I'm gonna really need my mouse. This is stupid. It's literally disappeared because on a Mac, if you move it, there you are. You're supposed to come back. Okay. Kind of scared me there for a second. So when you create an event for programming, you've got a couple different options about what your triggers are. And things like action button, player touch, event touch, those are pretty self-explanatory and are also pretty safe to use. When you get down to auto run and parallel, these get a little more dangerous. And auto run basically means when you enter that map, it runs. And if you don't tell it to stop running, it will not stop running and it'll freeze up your game. So with both parallels and auto runs, I call the process kill it with a self switch or kill it with a switch. Where after everything's run that you need to run, you always turn on some sort of switch or self switch, move to another page that switch activates, and then do nothing. And that's why I say it kills the event. It makes it do nothing anymore. So with parallel events, auto run will do that one time. You enter the map and then boom, it runs. And as long as you kill it, it does its thing one time and then goes away. Parallel events on the other hand, are happening all the time. It's like update if you're using Unity or C#. It's like an over caffeinated ferret checking things all the time. And I thought in this game that was what I needed. I'd been doing a lot of Unity stuff with like game timers in update. Like in update, always keep subtracting time, and then the moment time equals 0, end the game. I'd been doing a lot of that in Unity lately, and just sort of got used to it. And I thought that was the same process. But then a buddy of mine was giving a presentation in the virtual reality developers group here in Nashville about, you know, not using update if you don't have to. And I've sort of translated that, like, don't use a parallel event in RPG Maker if you don't have to. What I was doing is I was trying to detect, the player does all these things, you know, rents apartments, goes to work, and loses HP at various points. And I was trying to use these parallel events. It's constantly checking, and then the moment the player's HP hits 0, transfer the player to another map where the end of the game is going to happen. And that just did not work. The game kept freezing up, or it would, even if I transferred on the same map, things got kind of janky, and there were lots of bugs. The thing I think about why I think that happened is because the like if you transfer the player to a different map and that parallel event that's running is no longer there, it kind of goofs up. It's like still trying to run, but it can't run because you're on a different map. And parallel events too, a lot of times you need to kill them with a switch, like I did. So I have this this was the wrong way to do things. This ended up being pretty stupid. It ate a lot of time. But I have this parallel event, like the ferret, checking every moment it can that the machine can handle it. If the player's HP is equal to or less than 1. If it is, what I had to do was just turn on a switch that said the game was over. And then had another auto run event that if the game was over, then run the lose game ending, which I have coded elsewhere. And again, that's technically 3 events just to handle one situation. And what I realized is that on any events, let's say if you accept a job and you lose HP, or you go to work and lose HP, like I am in control of when the player decreases HP. This parallel idea I would only do if you had a situation like the player is poisoned and losing HP every second or something that you don't control in a script, and you need to detect that. What I could have done is in all my other events, in all my other scripts, I could have, whenever there was a decrease in HP, I'm essentially already doing it anyway, I'm checking if the game is over. And instead of doing parallel events and auto run events, I could have done it right here in this script. I could have made it the common event. I already have the common event. I already have the game ending lose. I've already got that programmed out. Just here at the beginning, I could have put in the checks and says, okay, player lost HP. If the player lost HP, like anytime that happened, run this check. Is their HP 1 or less? If yes, lose the game. If not, keep doing whatever you were doing. This check right here, it could have been a part of that. So anytime the player lost HP, run that check, and then that is event based. Only when the event of the player losing HP happens do I check what their HP is and decide whether or not to end the game, as opposed to checking it all the time, which is what I'm doing. So that was a mistake. I used parallel events in a very wrong way, just trying to use them to transfer the player. That didn't work, and I could have avoided those parallel events and saved some performance. To transfer the player if it's in the way. What do I mean by that? Let's start. I've lost the mouse again. Just run the game. I'm not gonna search for the mouse again. That's stupid. Why is it disappearing? Okay. I'm gonna skip through the intro. There you are, mouse. See, it came back now. Okay. We're gonna go to this landlord right here in the center. And what was going to happen was, after I talked to her and rent the apartment, she was going to walk over to the right to get out of the way of the door. But see, the player's standing right here. So she either cannot go to the right, or it's going to look really stupid with them standing in the same spot. So the solution to that was that whenever you decide to rent the apartment, get the player out of the way. He's going to transfer back here in the middle. So we rented the apartment, we fade out, fade back in. He's here out of her way, she's here out of his way, and you can go into the apartment. That's what I mean by transferring the player if they're going to be in the way. The last point on the PowerPoint, separate events for same NPC in separate locations. While we were talking about the landlord, let's just zoom in right here. My mouse is gone again. This is really annoying. So you see Ivanka is her name. You see her there twice. And the reason is the one on the left is the one I talked to go through the logic of actually renting the apartment. When you do rent the apartment, turn on a switch that you've rented this apartment. And let me go back. When you turn on that switch, that then, kind of like I said, kill it with a switch. That makes her disappear where she's standing, but I have a separate event, same character art and everything. And then this is where you can handle moving out of the apartment. She's out of the way from the entrance, and you can handle the other logic that's in the game. So even though it's the same NPC character, I've had to make 2 events so that she's not ever in the way. If I just tried to do it with 1 event and have her walk to the right, which was what I originally tried, then when you go in the apartment and come back out, she's blocking the door again. Whenever you enter that map, an event on that map, an NPC on that map is going to go back to their default position, which could be in the way of something. So separate events for the same NPC character in separate locations. Okay, that's the end of the slideshow. Those were the lessons I learned. I hope you all had a good Ludum Dare. I'm really looking forward to playing the games that are out there and doing more videos about those. And I'll see you guys in one of those future videos.